The sharp command cut through the evening air like a gunshot. "You put your hands on him again, and I swear." Every head in the park turned. Two police officers stood tense, hands on their holsters. Between them, a man in a crisp dark blue uniform knelt beside a trembling elderly veteran on a weathered bench. The veteran's cap read, "Vietnam, 1968-69. The man in uniform didn't flinch. He raised a white-gloved hand and said softly, "He's not a suspect. He's my brother." That was Staff Sergeant Marcus Jackson, an African-American tomb guard from Arlington National Cemetery, far from the marble plaza and the cadence of 21 measured steps. This was no ceremony. It was a spark waiting to catch fire. Hours earlier, the park outside the VA clinic in Chattanooga, Tennessee, was calm, lined with fading flags and magnolia trees whispering in the breeze. Marcus, a third-generation soldier from a family of black veterans, had come to visit an old Army buddy, recovering from surgery. He'd stopped to rest on a bench when he saw him, Clarence Washington, 78, in a wrinkled jacket, muttering to himself, his cane fallen at his feet. At first, Marcus thought Clarence was just tired. But then he saw two teenagers across the path recording the old man on their phones, laughing. Marcus's stomach tightened, not just at the disrespect to a veteran, but at the familiar sting of public judgment he'd faced too often as a black man. Without raising his voice, he approached. "Gentlemen," he said evenly, "put the phones away." His shadow fell over them, 6'2", composed, unmistakably military. They muttered apologies and backed off. Marcus knelt to pick up Clarence's cane. "Sir," he said softly, "you all right?" Clarence blinked, squinting up as if seeing through a haze. "Captain, you came back?" Marcus froze for a beat, recognizing the weight of the mistake. His father, a Vietnam vet, had told him about soldiers lost in memory. "At ease, soldier," Marcus said. "I'm here." He adjusted Clarence's jacket, helped him sip from a water bottle, and stayed. As the sun dipped behind the magnolias, he listened to Clarence ramble about jungle mud, lost brothers, and the weight of survival as a black soldier in a war that didn't always welcome him. There was no mockery, only respect in Marcus's silence. Across the park, a woman with a stroller frowned. She saw a black man in uniform leaning close to an elderly veteran who looked distressed. She didn't hear the words. She only saw the scene. In a world quick to judge, she reached for her phone, not to record, but to call 911. As twilight deepened, the park fell into a strange quiet. Marcus sat still, head bowed, unaware that flashing lights were closing in. The tomb guard, who had mastered the art of stillness, was about to face the chaos of misunderstanding. "Down!" Clarence shouted suddenly, jerking forward, his hand trembling. "Mortars, get your heads down!" Marcus caught his wrist gently, steady but calm. "Easy, Clarence. You're safe. You're in Chattanooga, not Da Nang." But Clarence's eyes were locked in the past, in the steamy jungles of Vietnam, calling names: Jackson, Lewis, Doc Green, each a ghost stepping from memory. Marcus didn't interrupt. He knew the rhythm of trauma, how it hit like artillery. At Arlington, he'd seen veterans weep at the tomb, calling out names no one else heard. His job was to witness without judgment. As Clarence's voice broke into sobs, Marcus spoke softly. "I know, Sergeant. You did your duty. You got them home." The words landed like an anchor. Clarence stared at Marcus's gloves, the tomb guard badge, the sentinel's wreath, and nodded faintly as if recognizing something sacred. "You still walking that line?" he asked, voice proud. "Every day," Marcus said. The wind shifted. Children played in the distance. A flagpole clinked faintly. For a moment, the two soldiers, one young, one old, both black, sat as equals, bound by decades of unspoken understanding. Then sirens wailed. Marcus turned, frowning. Two police cruisers rolled to the curb, lights flashing red and blue over the magnolias. He exhaled slowly. Clarence's hand tightened on his sleeve. "It's all right," Marcus murmured, rising carefully. "Just stay seated." The officers moved quickly, young, tense, uncertain. "Sir, step away from the bench," Officer Daniels ordered, hand near his weapon. Marcus straightened, his military bearing radiating quiet authority. "Officer, this man is a veteran." "He's confused. I'm helping him get back inside." "Then why's he yelling?" Officer Jenkins snapped. Clarence tried to stand, stumbled, and Marcus caught him by the arm. To the police, it looked like restraint. "Let him go," Daniel's voice rose. Marcus's jaw tightened. "I said he's not a threat," the radios crackled. A dispatcher's voice. "Caller reports possible assault on an elderly male by a man in uniform. Proceed with caution." Jenkins's eyes narrowed. "Sir, I'm not telling you again. Hands where I can see them." For a tomb guard, composure was muscle memory. But Marcus felt frustration burn beneath the surface. He'd spent years honoring the fallen, and now, for honoring the living, he was a suspect. He raised his gloved hands, the evening light catching the polished brass of his badge. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "I'm U.S. Army active duty." Daniel's hand moved toward his holster. "Then you can explain that downtown." The moment stretched heavy and taut. Marcus thought of his oath: to protect, to endure, to uphold the honor of those who came before. But duty couldn't shield him from bias. The crack of boots on gravel cut through the air. "Face down now." Jenkins's command was sharp, instinctive. Marcus stood rooted, hands still raised, calm but firm. "You're escalating a situation that doesn't need escalation," he said, voice low. Jenkins's eyes flicked to the glint of brass on Marcus's uniform. "That insignia looks fake," he muttered. "You one of those guys who dress up for attention?" Marcus's eyes hardened, the weight of a lifetime of skepticism hitting him. "That badge is earned," he said quietly. "If you knew what it stood for, you'd lower your voice." "Sir, I'm giving you a lawful order," Jenkins snapped, stepping closer. "Hands on your head." The older officer, Daniels, hesitated. "Kid, maybe we just—" But it was too late. Jenkins grabbed Marcus's arm. Clarence shouted, "Don't hurt him, he's one of us." Marcus didn't resist, but when he pivoted to keep Clarence from falling, the motion looked aggressive. In a flash, both officers tackled him to the ground. Gravel bit into his cheek. The cold click of cuffs snapped around his wrists. "Stop, please." Clarence's voice cracked, his frail body stumbling forward. Daniels tried to guide him back, but Clarence fought until his cane slipped, and he hit the pavement. The hollow thud hung like judgment. A small crowd gathered, some whispered, others filmed. One woman gasped, "He didn't do anything." A man shook his head. "Same story every day," he muttered, walking off. Pinned to the ground, Marcus turned his head to see Clarence struggling to sit up. "It's okay, soldier," Marcus said softly, breath shallow. "I'm all right." Jenkins pressed a knee between Marcus's shoulder blades. "You're under arrest for resisting and suspected impersonation of a military officer." Marcus closed his eyes. Impersonation. The word cut deeper than the cuffs. He thought of every dawn at Arlington, boots shining, rifle precise, heart still. Impersonation. No, this was service. This was oath. Daniels crouched beside him, uneasy. "You got any ID, son?" "In my jacket," Marcus said evenly. "Left side." The officer checked, eyes catching the Army credentials, the serial number, the embossed seal. His breath hitched. "He's legit," he whispered. Jenkins froze, shame flickering across his face. But the damage was done. The crowd had recorded it. Sirens drew more units. As Marcus was lifted to his feet, cuffed hands behind him, he looked at Clarence, now on the curb, dazed, blood trickling from his temple. Their eyes met across the flashing lights. Marcus's voice was steady, quiet enough for only Clarence to hear. "I'll be back for you." Clarence tried to salute, his trembling hand falling halfway. The officers guided Marcus to the cruiser. The door closed with a metallic thud, sealing in the silence of disbelief. Through the window, Marcus caught a last glimpse of the bench, a place of mercy turned into a stage of misunderstanding. As the car rolled away, a new stillness filled him. Not the disciplined silence of the tomb, but the heavy quiet of injustice. The cell door clanged shut with finality. Cold concrete walls, a narrow metal bench, fluorescent lights humming. It was a world far from Arlington's marble silence. Staff Sergeant Marcus Jackson sat upright, hands on his knees, the ache of injustice heavier than the ghost of cuffs. A deputy muttered about paperwork delays. Marcus didn't respond. Years of guard duty had taught him patience. 21 steps, 21 seconds. Discipline measured by breath. This was a different kind of watch. In the next cell, a man with a rough voice chuckled. "One of them fancy soldiers?" Marcus glanced over. The man, broad and in county orange, had a faded screaming eagle tattoo. "101st?" Marcus asked quietly. The man, James Jimmy Tate, looked surprised. Yeah, Desert Storm, you? 3rd Infantry Regiment, Marcus said. Old Guard, Jimmy grinned faintly. The ones who march like machines. Machines don't bleed, Marcus replied. We just make sure the world remembers who did. Silence fell. 2 black veterans from different wars, divided by steel bars but bound by shared duty and the weight of being misjudged. Marcus leaned back against the wall, mind drifting to the tomb. The click of heels, the murmur of tourists, the eternal flame flickering through mist. Each sound was sacred. Now, in this cell, he repeated those steps in his mind. 21 forward. Pause, 21 back. Every breath a vow to stay composed. A deputy appeared. You want your phone call? Marcus shook his head. No one to call. The deputy frowned. You sure? You're in a mess, soldier. Marcus looked up, calm, unbroken. I've been in worse places. This isn't war. It's just noise. When the deputy left, Jimmy spoke again, softer. They don't get it, do they? Civilians never know what it means to stand for something. Marcus nodded. That's why we still do. Footsteps echoed down the hall. 2 deputies stopped at the door. One looked uneasy. Sergeant Jackson, he said, the chief wants to see you. Someone important's on the line. Marcus rose, posture perfect despite exhaustion. Then let's not keep them waiting, he said, voice steady. Neither proud nor defiant, just composed. He didn't yet know that miles away, in an office lined with flags and medals, a 4-star general had spoken his name. At the Pentagon, late afternoon light cast gold streaks across polished floors. 4-star General Thomas Carver, Chief of Staff of the United States Army, stood by his window overlooking the Potomac. His aide burst in, face pale. Sir, you need to see this. Carver frowned as a tablet was handed to him. The video played. A black soldier in a ceremonial uniform kneeling beside an elderly veteran, surrounded by flashing lights. Voices shouted. An officer grabbed him. The soldier stood tall, calm, silent as cuffs clicked. The camera zoomed on his badge, the Tomb Guard identification badge, one of the rarest in the Army. Carver froze. He knew that face. Staff Sergeant Marcus Jackson. His aide spoke quietly. Arrested yesterday in Chattanooga. Some mix-up at a VA park. Charges are resisting and impersonation. The story was spreading online. Carver remembered Marcus from a ceremony at Arlington, honoring Carver's fallen mentor, a Black Korean War veteran. Marcus's composure had given the grief dignity. Now that soldier was in a cell, accused of pretending to be what he was. Carver set the tablet down with care. Get me Tennessee, he said, voice low. Sir, it's Sunday. I don't care if it's Christmas, Carver snapped, then quieter. No tomb guard spends a night in a cell for doing his duty. Phone lines lit up across states. The county sheriff answered, nervous. General, with all due respect, we didn't realize... Carver cut him off. You realized enough to cuff one of my soldiers. Fix it. He hung up, staring at his reflection. Lines of fatigue, eyes hardened by years of watching the country forget its heroes, especially those who looked like him. He whispered, how many times must we relearn respect? An aide returned. Sir, the judge will see the case tomorrow. The sheriff will comply. Carver nodded. Good. Arrange transport. I'll be there. The aide blinked. In person? Carver turned, the light catching 4 stars on his collar. If the Army stands guard 365 days at the tomb, I can stand for one man who honors it, that night. As his staff urged rest, Carver sat alone, replaying the video, Marcus standing firm, refusing to abandon the veteran, forced down by ignorance. It wasn't just anger that filled him. It was sorrow. Marcus's stillness wasn't defiance, it was duty. Carver reached for his cap, murmuring, Tomorrow, Sergeant, we remind them what honor looks like. The next morning dawned gray over Rutherford County Courthouse. Reporters lingered on the steps, cameras ready, whispers floating through the drizzle. That's the soldier from the video. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with confusion. Marcus sat alone at the defense table, his dress uniform rumpled but dignified. Back straight, eyes forward. Officers Daniels and Jenkins sat behind, avoiding his gaze. The judge entered, gavel striking. This hearing concerns charges of resisting arrest, impersonating a military officer, and disorderly conduct. Sergeant Jackson, do you have counsel? No, Your Honor, Marcus said evenly. The truth will do. A murmur rippled through the room. The heavy door swung open. Every head turned. A tall black man in a dark suit stepped in, rein on his shoulders, silver hair cropped close. 4 small stars gleamed on his lapel. The bailiff stiffened. Attention in the court! General Thomas Carver walked to the front, handing a folder to the clerk. Your Honor, he said, voice carrying like a command. I am here as a character witness and as Chief of Staff of the United States Army. The judge blinked, gesturing to the witness stand. Proceed, General. Carver stepped forward. This man you've accused of impersonating a soldier is among the most disciplined in our ranks. There are only about 400 living tomb guards in history. They train for years to earn that badge, the same badge your officers called fake. He turned to the courtroom, tone unyielding. A tomb guard serves those who cannot speak, cannot rise, cannot defend themselves. Last night, Sergeant Jackson did that for a forgotten veteran when no one else would. The room fell silent. The judge removed her glasses. General, are you telling this court? Carver raised a hand gently. I'm reminding you, ma'am. Some things are older than paperwork, louder than politics, duty, sacrifice, tradition. Jenkins dropped his gaze. Daniels looked struck, the weight of his mistake sinking in. Carver turned to Marcus. Sergeant, you stood your ground without striking a blow. You endured humiliation without losing composure. That's what honor looks like. He faced the bench. Your Honor, I request all charges be dropped and an apology issued to this soldier. The judge nodded, eyes misted. Motion granted. Case dismissed. The gavel struck with finality. Reporters watched, reverent, as Marcus rose to attention and saluted Carver. The general returned it, crisp and solemn. Outside, Carver leaned closer. You didn't do wrong, Sergeant. You reminded us what right still looks like. The rain had stopped. Sunlight glinted off Marcus's brass buttons. The courthouse steps felt like parade ground marble beneath his boots. By late afternoon, the park outside the VA was quiet again. The grass was damp, the wind carrying the metallic scent of autumn. The bench sat under a rustling magnolia, its paint chipped but clean. The gravel swept smooth. Marcus walked the path in full dress uniform, steps deliberate but unhurried. This wasn't ceremony. It was closure. Under the magnolia sat Clarence Washington in a new jacket and a Vietnam veteran cap. His eyes were clearer, the confusion lifted by rest and care. When he saw Marcus, he started to stand. Stay seated, sir, Marcus said gently. You've stood enough in your life, Clarence chuckled, a rasping sound of memory. They tell me I caused a mess. You didn't, Marcus replied. The world just got too busy to listen. They sat in silence, cars humming in the distance, a flag clanking against its pole. The stillness was earned. After a while, Clarence spoke. That general fella really came for you. Marcus nodded. He came for what the uniform stands for. Clarence's eyes misted. I thought nobody remembered us anymore. They do, Marcus said. They just need reminding. Beside the bench, a bronze plaque gleamed in the sunlight. Marcus brushed away a fallen leaf. The engraving read, For those who still stand watch, always. Clarence traced the words, lips moving in silent prayer. You heading back to Arlington? He asked. Tomorrow morning, Marcus said, smiling faintly. Cold place in winter. Doesn't matter, Clarence said. The watch doesn't stop. Marcus stood, adjusting his kepi hat, and extended a gloved hand. Clarence took it, grip weak but full of gratitude. You're a good man, Sergeant Jackson, he said. Don't let this world make you forget what right feels like. I won't, sir, Marcus said softly. They shook once. Marcus stepped back and saluted. Slow, precise, meant for the living as much as the dead. Clarence returned it, hand trembling at his brow. As Marcus walked away, the evening sun broke through, laying a strip of gold across the bench. Clarence sat quietly, shoulders squared, the way soldiers sit when they remember. Later that night, in Arlington's darkness, Marcus resumed his post. 21 steps turned 21 back. The wind whispered through the marble arches like a prayer. In that sacred rhythm, he carried Clarence's story, a reminder that duty lives in kindness, in standing tall when misunderstanding knocks you down. Honor isn't loud. It's steady, a promise kept, a hand extended, a truth lived when the world rushes past. If this story moved you, remember someone who stood the watch, who gave quietly so others could live freely. And if their stories still matter, share this one. Remembrance is a duty too.